Here is the recap of Shogun. The action of the series takes place in 1600 in Japan. The whole of Europe still does not know about this country. Only Portugal and Spain have established trade relations and keep them secret. Being Catholics, they started to build churches and lure the people of Japan to their faith. Meanwhile, Dutches also got to know that their enemies, the Portuguese, are secretly trading with someone in distant lands. So they send their fleet of 5 ships to Japan. However, the journey was not an easy one. By the end of the voyage, only 1 ship remains, and the crew is almost at death due to lack of water and food. Eventually, they reach land, where they are met by the Japanese army. They board the ship, where they find the sailors half dead. The men are thrown in jail, and the soldiers try to figure out who they are, as they are clearly not Portuguese or Spanish, and Japan has not heard of any other European countries. The only one of the prisoners who knows Portuguese turns out to be the main character, a pilot major named John. Yabushige, the ruler of Izu City, decides to interrogate the foreigner and for this purpose calls the local Catholic priest, who immediately realizes that John belongs to another religion. At first, John wants to be executed, but he manages to convince Yabushige that he can be useful. The ship is essentially his. It's got a huge number of guns and cannons. The clever Yabushige wants to use this resource in the difficult times ahead. Meanwhile, in Osaka, Taiko, the powerful leader of Japan, dies, leaving a sole heir. However, he is too young to rule. So until he grows up, the country is ruled by a council of 5 regents. One of them, named Ishida, secretly decided to seize power, but he needs to somehow get rid of the other regents. First of all, he decides to take out the strongest opponent, Toranaga. The other 4 regents gather a council where they bring false accusations against Toranaga for plotting to seize power in Japan, as he has been building up his army lately. The council orders the man to accept his fate and commit seppuku. They give Toranaga time to think about it, but the man is not about to just give up. He learns that the town of Izu under his control has been taken over by a Dutch ship and its crew, so he sends his loyal general there. He confiscates the ship with all its contents. Afterwards, he heads to Osaka with Yabushige and John, as Toranaga has a plan to save his life. John gets on a Japanese ship being steered by Rodriguez, a Spanish pilot. A storm begins and Rodriguez falls overboard. When everyone gets to land, John persuades Yabushige to find Rodriguez, as there is a code that obliges to rescue those in distress. They eventually find Rodriguez unconscious at the foot of a cliff. John manipulates Yabushige, and he has to go down after the Rodriguez in order not to fall foul of his men. Things don't go smoothly, and Yabushige falls into the water. The man thinks he won't survive and is about to commit seppuku, but he is rescued. They also pull Rodriguez out. John was shocked by Yabushige's intention to end his life, and the act affected John greatly. The protagonists arrive in Osaka. Rodriguez gives the Catholic priest the log book from John's ship. Catholics have already put their roots deep into Japanese politics. Even 2 of the 5 regents are Christian and have long profited from trade with Portugal. The priests can't allow Japan to cooperate with another country because Portugal will lose huge amounts of money. They find records in the ship's logbook that indicate that the Dutch, being Protestants, burned Catholic villages on their way here. This means that the church can demand that John be executed for piracy, so the priests encourage their controlled regents to pressure the council. That's exactly what Toranaga wanted by bringing John here, to create discord in the council. Meanwhile, John is brought before Toranaga, with priest Martin, who is not really a bad man, acting as interpreter. Ishida suddenly appears, who I recall, is determined to seize all power in Japan. He realizes that Toranaga is up to something, so he sends John to prison. Yabushige is not very loyal to his master Toranaga, as he prefers to be on the winning side. If Toranaga commits seppuku, his close circle, including Yabushige, must lose their lives along with him. The man meets Ishida and tries to gain Ishida's trust. He hints that when Toranaga dies, there will be 4 regents left. 2 of them are Christians and together have too much power in the council. Ishida might not be able to handle them, so Yabushige suggests keeping John alive and using him as leverage. And Yabushige will help keep John alive, against the wishes of the Catholics. Soon, 2 Christian regents demand that Ishida execute John. He pretends to agree, but when John is sent to execution, he is rescued by Yabushige and returned to Toranaga. The interpreter Mariko is assigned to John. She is the last of her noble lineage. Her father was executed 14 years ago for treason, and she has sworn to serve Toranaga ever since. John talks about his country and the opportunities Japan will gain from trade with the Dutch. Toranaga already suspected that the Portuguese were profiting from their country, but was not aware that they, along with the Spanish, had long ago divided Japan into parts and were about to take it over completely. At night, Toranaga is attacked by ninjas and John saves the ruler. However, it turns out that the target was actually John, who slept in Toranaga's chambers. Toranaga realizes that the Council of Regents will soon sign a decree banishing him. That means the man's days are numbered. He decides to act. Toranaga pretends to send his men out of Osaka, but actually sneaks into the palanquin and leaves the castle, where he is held like prisoner. Along the way, they are discovered, and the main characters have to escape. They get on a ship and try to leave Osaka, but notice that they are already being waited for, and they can't get through on the ship. At this time in the port, there is a so-called black ship, which is engaged in trade between Japan and Europe. However, due to recent events, they can't leave the port. Toranaga, being what you might call the Minister of Foreign Trade, gives permission to sail if they can help them break through the cordon. As I recall, Toranaga has not yet been expelled from the council, so his word is law. The captain of the black ship agrees, but sets John up, intending to steer his ship into the reef. However, Rodriguez decides to repay John for his recent rescue and allows him to escape the wreck. Afterwards, all the main characters leave Osaka. Toranaga decides that he needs to prepare for war, as the other regents will surely want to kill him. The man realizes that John can help him in this. He grants John a title and makes him his confidant. John's job is to teach Toranaga's army how Europeans fight. John, being an ordinary pilot, doesn't know anything about infantry, but he is good with cannons. So he begins to teach the soldiers how to shoot them accurately. Soon Ishida's general arrives to demand surrender, but Toranaga's son blasts them with cannons. Meanwhile, Mariko begins to develop feelings for John. She sneaks into his rooms and sleeps with him. A short time later, Mariko's husband, whom she thought was dead, returns. The girl is unhappy in her marriage, but there is nothing she can do about it. Meanwhile, Ochiba, the mother of the heir to the throne, arrives in Osaka. Although she is a woman, she has power in Japan. She is aware of Ishida's plans to overthrow the other regents and become the sole ruler. Ochiba decides to gain his trust and tells him how to act in certain situations. In this way, they manage to captivate the other regents. One of them tries to escape, and Ishida's men kill the man for his betrayal. Soon Ishida, at the behest of Ochiba, includes a new member in the council who is supposed to obey them. After a while, Ishida suggests that she marry him, which would further consolidate his power. And the woman informs him that she will think about it. Toranaga's army is assembled, but suddenly there is a strong earthquake and part of the army is killed by a landslide. Toranaga almost dies as well, but he is once again saved by John. The ruler realizes that the only way to save the heir from the traitor Ishida is to attack Osaka, but he lacks the strength, so he turns to his brother Saki for help. After a while, Saki responds and arrives at Toranaga's location with his army. However, it turns out that Saki has sworn allegiance to Ishida and has become the 5th regent instead of Toranaga. Toranaga's army is surrounded and he must go to Osaka, where he is executed along with his men. At night, Toranaga's son makes an attempt on Saki's life, but has accidentally killed himself. Toranagi is given 49 days to mourn after his son's funeral, as is customary, but he is forbidden to leave the city or they will all be slaughtered. As Toranaga falls ill and feels unwell, he orders his men not to resist and to accept their fate. But not everyone is ready to just give up. His close general disagrees with his master and says so in public, so he commits seppuku. The Council of Regents sees that Toranaga is not resisting and rejoices in his victory. However, the Catholic priests suspect that this is some kind of cunning move by Toranaga and that he is actually still plotting to eliminate the council, which is actually the truth. His son and the general sacrifice their lives to convince the council of his surrender. Meanwhile, Toranaga gives John his freedom and he goes to Yabushiga. They are unaware of the ruler's plans and want to get to Osaka to offer Ishida a trade alliance with the Dutch, and Toranaga sends Mariko along with them. Mariko arrives in Osaka and tells Ishida that she wishes to leave the castle with Toranaga's wife, who is being held hostage along with other members of the ruler's family. Ishida refuses her, and then Mariko says she will commit seppuku because she cannot fulfill her lord's orders. Ishida finds herself in a difficult situation. If the girl dies, it will mean to the nobles that Ishida has them all imprisoned. However, if he lets Mariko leave, anyone can demand to leave Osaka, including the board of regents he controls in this way. That was Toranaga's plan, to sow a seed of doubt in the nobility of Japan. In the evening, Mariko prepares to say goodbye to her life, but Ishida allows her to leave the city. However, he can't just let it go. Ishida persuades Yabushige to help him secretly capture Mariko and take her into custody. During the night, the girl sleeps with John again, while Yabushige lets the ninjas into their wing of the castle. Those kill the guards and John and the others hide in a warehouse. However, the ninjas blow up the door and Mariko is killed. The incident has stirred up the nobility in Japan. Ishida is forced to allow all the families held hostage by him to leave the castle. Meanwhile, the Council of Regents learns that Toranaga has escaped from imprisonment, so they sign a decree to start a war against his clan. A few days later, John regains consciousness and learns of Mariko's death. He is given permission to leave Osaka, and the man does not understand how this is possible. John is accompanied by Priest Martin and tells John that it was Mariko who arranged with the Catholics to let him leave the city. Upon reaching Izu, John sees that his ship has sunk and realizes what Mariko has exchanged his life for. Toranaga orders Yabushige's arrest for treason, as he has learned that he was the one who let the ninja in, causing Mariko's death. Yabushige pleads guilty, even though he didn't know the girl would die. Toranaga also orders to find the spy who helped the Catholics destroy the ship and is willing to execute the entire village for the sake of it. John is against such a fate for the village that has cared for him all these months. He is ready to commit seppuku to save the villagers, but Toranaga stops him. The ruler is satisfied with the kind of man John has become. He agrees to stop searching for the spy and demands that John rebuild his ship and create a fleet for him, which he actually begins to do. We are also shown that John lived to a ripe old age and returned to his homeland. Meanwhile, Yabushige is ready to commit seppuku for what he did earlier. At the end, he asks Toranaga to tell him exactly what his plan was. It turns out Mariko was the key figure in all of this. Her sacrifice had a strong influence on Ochiba, the mother of the heir to the throne, as she was Mariko's best friend as a child. After what happened, she decided to stop supporting Ishida. The day the regent armies attack the tiny Toranaga forces, Ochiba will abandon Ishida, which means that the heir will not support him in this either. The regents will overthrow Ishida and peace will finally come to Japan. After hearing all this, Yabushige commits seppuku, as befits a true samurai. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.